Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Brannigan, the principal here at the high school, and we're really excited to be able to provide tonight our third workshop series in our wonderful series of college planning that our school counseling department does here at Middleborough High School. We have two of our guidance counselors and school counselors here tonight to be able to walk you through. To all of our senior families that are joining us tonight, I welcome you. In all of the craziness of all that is going on, the normalcy of just this college application process seems really a nice piece right now for us. And then to also to our underclassmen families that could be joining us tonight to maybe get a little bit of a sense of what this is all about, we welcome you as well. I'm going to bring in our two counselors that are joining us tonight that are really, really running the show tonight. And I'm just so thankful for their work and their collaboration and their expertise in this entire process. So the first person I want to bring in to introduce themselves to you tonight is Mrs. Byrne. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Paul. How are you? Welcome to our virtual college application evening. First time we're doing this. If it goes well, who knows what the future will bring.
That's right.
But my name is Amy Byrne, and I work with students in grades 9 through 12 with last names that begin with A through E. And I've been working with a lot of seniors already on the college application process this year, starting over the summer with the boot camp. And a lot of those seniors who attended the boot camp are actually applying to college this week and next week for November 1st deadline. So things are very much in motion.
That's right. So Amy, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for all of your work and expertise with this entire process, which I know is changing constantly in regards to what colleges and universities are looking for. So we welcome you tonight. And our counselor that we're going to be bringing in is really the person who brought this entire workshop series to life. And you worked with him back in the winter months with the first workshop series. And now we bring you to conclusion with this final piece of the puzzle. And I'd like to bring in our other school counselor for this evening who will really take the lead in the presentation tonight, Mr. Steve Goldsman.
Good evening and welcome to our third and final presidential debate. The candidates have taken the stage, and the good news is we don't have to listen to either one of them because we're here to talk about college applications tonight. So I'm going to be hosting you. I'm Steve Goldman. I work with the end of the alphabet, any students with the last names N through Z. And we are thrilled to be able to do this for you. This is part 3 of a 3-part series. Unfortunately, due to the COVID shutdown, I said I wouldn't mention COVID tonight, but I just did. We weren't able to facilitate our second workshop. We did do the first one for those of you who were not able to attend on January 30th. If you did not get a chance to catch 1 or 2, if you go to the Middleborough High School website, click on Departments in the School Counseling Office, and click on the Senior Information link, you will see the video from the presentation we did in January, and you will see an older video of one we did in May a few years ago, which is pretty much the same information. It's talking about the process of the college planning process, which brings us to where we are tonight, the nuts and bolts of applying to college. In addition, the workbooks, you can find the workbooks underneath those videos. So if you need additional copies of those workbooks, you can download those there. The workbook that we're going to be working from tonight is in there also. And again, that's the third book that's called The Nuts and Bolts of Applying to College. So hopefully we answer a lot of questions tonight. The guidance counselors, as Amy had mentioned earlier, are going to start calling students down individually to meet with them. Just please bear with us. We can't meet with all of them at once. What we're going to try to do is anybody that has a very early deadline, November 1st, November 15th, we want to get those people in right away. Anybody who has deadlines later, you can let us know you want to meet with us, but we may have to do some shuffling around because we are a few weeks behind with the late start to school and the the time we had to spend redoing schedules. So we'll get there. We'll get there together. Everything will work out. Don't panic. The colleges are being very flexible with a lot of things this year, and as long as we're communicating with each other, this process will work. So this is a new technology for us, and we are hoping that hopefully there's not too many glitches with it. So I am going to try to share my screen now. And let me find there we go. And the workbook should be popping up on the screen right now. There it is. So here we are, nuts and bolts of applying to college. So there's very little repetitive series. So if you have not looked through workbook 1 and workbook 2, you may have some additional questions, which will probably be in those workbooks, but feel free as we're going along to type out any questions. Amy will be answering them as we go along, so this way we won't be here all night, and you guys can get along with whatever it is that you want to do this evening. So we go to the inside cover of the workbook, and we have the senior timeline, and it just, you know, I don't have to read it. I think you guys, it's pretty self-explanatory. It just tells you what's coming up and when. If you have specific questions, certainly shoot us an email or give us a call, or for the students, stop in and see us, and we can help you with that. Then we have the table of contents, and this is your school counseling staff, and just a word for guidance. What this basically says is that we are here to assist and advise you in any way we can. We do not find your schools for you. We do not fill out your applications and write your essays. That is your responsibility. We would be more than happy to read those things. I know Ms. Byrne and I review the applications with the students. Just to make sure, we try to check for grammar and spelling and all that other stuff. Your best bet for an essay, though, would be to have an English teacher proofread it. So just, you know, keep in mind, we're here to work with you, but that means that you have a responsibility and we have a responsibility that is shared. And then this is just a review of what we covered in workbook 1, where to begin, and then workbook 2 is what you should be doing over the summer. And then we get into the nuts and bolts of applying to college. So there are basically 3 steps to this process. It's the teacher recommendations in the first column, the application, and the essay goes along with that, and then the standardized test scores. So let's talk first about the teacher recommendations. Hopefully, at this point, all the seniors have asked a teacher for a letter, if they'd be willing to write a letter of recommendation. Doesn't mean they've written it yet. It's usually a junior teacher that you ask because they've seen you most recently for the longest period of time. You want to avoid asking a teacher that you had freshman year and you have never had them again. That's kind of a little far off. If you had them as a freshman or a sophomore and you have them again right now as a senior, that might not be a bad person to ask because they can also talk to the growth they've seen in you as a student over the years. The junior teachers tend to be the ones that are inundated with these requests. And it's not part of their job to do it. They do it on their own time. But you want to make sure you're giving them plenty of time to be able to write a well thought out letter of recommendation. Some teachers may put a cap. The first 20 people that ask are the ones that are going to get it. So just keep that in mind. That's why we asked the juniors to take care of this back in June before they left school, and we put it in the newsletter this year. This is, if it hasn't been done, this is something you want to take care of right away, is to get a commitment from a teacher. And then we'll show you in a little while what forms you have to fill out for them, so you can and send it to the teacher. So what ends up happening is you ask the teacher, you give them the form. That's the teacher letter of rec info sheet. You're going to tell them a little bit about your experience in their class, so to kind of jog their memory. They write the letter, they upload it into our Naviance software program. They fill out a teacher report, and then it gets submitted electronically to the colleges. So you'll notice that the teacher letter of recommendation does not pass through the hands of guidance. So that is something that you need to coordinate with your teacher to make sure that that is happening and getting sent out. Now, if you're getting a notification from a college that they don't have your teacher recommendation, please don't go and accuse them of not doing it. Sometimes there's glitches. A lot of times it's been submitted. They just haven't opened it yet. You just might want to remind them, I have a deadline. I did get an email. Did you get a chance to send that out? Because if they didn't write it yet, now you've aggravated them, and you might not want to have them write a letter of recommendation for you. So that's the teacher recommendation piece. Let's skip over to the right-hand side where it says standardized test scores. Now, this is going to be a little bit different this year. Standardized test scores are either the SATs or the ACTs. Most of our students take the SATs. We may have a handful of students that take the ACT. The ACT is more of a Midwest test. You do not need to take both. 99% of the colleges will accept either one. And with the way things have gone the last year, I didn't say that word, most of the colleges are waiving SATs this year. As a lot of you probably know, it's been very difficult to get in and take a test. The test centers have been canceling. We canceled. We added September, and then we ended up canceling it. And we always have November. We ended up canceling it, and we ended up doing the in-school one last week because we didn't want anybody from outside our community to be coming in and possibly contaminating us. So it's been very difficult. If you have not taken an SAT and you're having a difficult time finding an available test center at this point, I wouldn't stress. I would just call the schools, the admissions office at the schools that you're considering, and say, are the SATs optional this year? And I can tell you, the highest of the high-level schools are waiving it this year. We've been getting emails pretty much since April telling us that they're waiving SATs. So talk to your school counselor if you have any questions about that, and be happy to guide you through that. And the next piece of the process is the application, the yellow column in the middle. So for many of you, you'll be filling out the common application. There's, I believe, between 800 and 900 colleges now that subscribe to this one common app. That means you fill out the application one time, and you send it off to all those schools that use it. There may be one or two schools that you apply to that are not on it, and you just have to go to that college's website, click on admissions, first year student application, and you would fill out their application there. So part of the application is also writing the essay. Don't save the essay for last. Everyone goes through and takes care of all the busy work, and they say, okay, I've got 2 weeks, I'm going to do my essay. An essay is something that you really want to take some time and thought, and you want to get away from it and clear your head and then come back with a fresh perspective. So you might want to, the general themes with the essays are tell us an experience where you learned something about yourself, an obstacle or a challenge you've overcome, a person you admire and why you admire that person. Just a little heads up on that one. I have a friend of mine that's an admissions counselor at Boston College, and he tells me every year he reads these wonderful essays about grandma and grandpa and what wonderful people are. They volunteer at their church, and they're kind to everybody, and they got a great sense of humor. And he says, we gladly accept grandma and grandpa, but you didn't tell us anything about yourself. So it's important that you make sure, if you're writing about somebody else that you admire, that you always bring it back to yourself and say, as a result of my experience with this person, these are my goals, my beliefs, my values. So this way they see the lessons that you've learned along the way. So with on the Common App, they give you 7 different choices, and one of them is a topic of your own choice. Sometimes that really scares people. Other times, people think, oh, because I don't like the other topics. So you've got a wide variety of things to write about. My suggestion would be, if you haven't started yet, is to just start jotting notes down about some of the things I just mentioned. These wonderful experiences you've had, where you learned something, or it was just something special to you. And maybe then just start writing phrases down, and then as you start to kind of get these ideas in a bag, and you decide which essay you want to write, see how you can plug some of that information in and start writing, write one paragraph and then get away from it for a while, clear your head, come back with a fresh perspective. And just, kind of keep doing that throughout the whole process. This way you're not stressing out and trying to get it all done in a week or two at the very end. you've really had some time to kind of process it. The essay, I would strongly encourage you to ask an English teacher to proofread it, and you make corrections, and you proofread again, you make corrections, you keep going through that process until it comes up nice and clean. I've read plenty of essays as a guidance counselor, so has Ms. Byrne. We're not English teachers, though, okay? So we may not always catch everything in there. But your best bet's always an English teacher. As far as the application goes, as I mentioned earlier, we will review your application if you would like us to do that. But you should really have a parent or a guardian review the application also, because we're not going to know if you misspelled your sister's name, or if you had put down the wrong social security number or birthday or something like that. That's just information we wouldn't have. So it's always important to make sure somebody who has that knowledge takes a look at that also. And again, you go through that whole process of making corrections, proofreading, making corrections until you have a nice clean document. As tempting it is to click that send button, do not click that send button until you know everything is done and ready to go. Your essay gets uploaded into the Common App. You will need to pay an online application fee. You're going to need a credit card for that. The application fees will run anywhere from $10 to $100 depending on the college. So that might be a reason not to apply to 10, 15, 20 schools. I would say on average, the application fee is probably going to run you about $65 to $75 per application. If you receive free or reduced lunch at school, please check in with your school counselor. And once we confirm that, you are entitled to a fee waiver for your applications, and we can make that happen for you. But you got to give us time to do that before your actual deadline. It doesn't matter if you're applying now or if you're applying in March. If you know you're entitled to it, just come see us and let's get the ball rolling on that. Okay, then and then you submit your application, your essay, and the fee to the colleges. Then you're going to have to go to Naviance, and I'm going to show you how to do this tonight to request a transcript. That's how your school counselor knows that you've applied to a school. You can't just walk into their office and say, I'm applying to the school, I need a transcript. You need to do it through Naviance because we submit it through Naviance. So it has to be in there for us to be able to submit it. And it also covers you because you can say, I submitted it. It's in there. You weren't looking. So hopefully that doesn't happen. You'll have an activity sheet that you're going to have to fill out for us, and the school counselor letter of recommendation info sheet. And I will show you those forms in a little bit. And then the last box there, your counselor has to do a whole bunch of forms. It's actually these, before we get to that box, so your activity sheet and then your the school counselor recommendation sheet needs to be submitted, and we require 15 school days prior to the college's deadline to be able to process and submit everything on your behalf. Okay, and the reason we need 15 school days is if you look in the next box, there's a lot of work that we need to do on our end. We need to get your transcript ready to go. We need to do the secondary school report form. We need to pull your first quarter or mid-year grades depending on the time of year. We need to add the school profile. We need to fill out the school counselor report, and we need to fill out the school counselor recommendation form and write the recommendation. The recommendation, you don't want to give your counselor a day or two to write a recommendation. You want them to take some time to really put some thought into it. Again, even if your deadlines are not until January 1st, February 1st, get this stuff done and submitted to us. Don't wait. If you have a November 15th deadline, don't wait until November 15th, because I can guarantee you probably about 50 of your classmates will wait until that very day too. And now we've got 15 school days to process that, write a well thought out letter, and keep up with all the other things that we do at school. So if you're done with it, we should send us the stuff, make your request so we can be working on it at the same time you're working on it and get things out in a timely way. Now, you'll notice I keep saying 15 school days. Not 3 weeks, 15 school days. Weekends don't count, school vacations don't count, holidays don't count. That is very important when you when we start hitting times like Thanksgiving and vacation periods in December and February and April, and we're going to go and talk about that in a little bit. Okay, let's move on to testing information. There's not much more I can say about testing right now that I didn't already say. We're in a very unusual circumstance this year. If you did take the SAT, you are entitled to 4 free score reports as part of your registration fee if you submit that request through your College Board account. I believe it's 9 days. No, I think it's 9 days after you take the test. Otherwise, they'll charge you $12 per score report to send it to the individual colleges. Now, a lot of people want to see those scores before they send them off to the colleges, and they're willing to eat the $12 per score report because they might want to take the SATs a second time, or maybe they don't want to submit them at all. So it's something that you got to think about before you just request that. So here is the tentative testing dates for the ACTs, the SATs, and the SAT subject tests. There's not a lot of schools that require subject tests. Subject tests are individual subjects. Math 2, they have biology, chemistry. There's tons of them. There's a whole bunch of them. More testing is not better. There's about 75 colleges in the United States that require subject tests, and there's maybe another 75 that recommend them. Our advice to you is if they're not required, don't take them. More is not better when it comes to testing. You don't want to take a test, not do well on it, and have it become part of your score report. It's another, you can't take them the same day you take the SAT reasoning test, so it's another Saturday that you'd have to go in and do it. There's, like I said, there's very few schools, and again, with the new protocols this year, schools aren't even asking for for any of the SATs at this point. If you're thinking about going into a nursing program, sometimes they do want an SAT biology. So that's a good question to ask the admissions office if they do, or if they have in the past, if they're still requiring that this year. Okay, so the forms that need to be completed. So the teacher recommendation form is this blue form right here. I know it's hard to see. You access this in Naviance in the under Document Resources. If you get onto your homepage, your Naviance homepage, and you scroll down, you'll see a box and it says Document Resources. If you click on that, you will see there's something else to click on there, and that's where you will find these 3 forms: the teacher recommendation info sheet, the counselor recommendation info sheet, and the activity sheet. So in most cases, you're only going to need 1 teacher recommendation. Okay. Some schools will take 2. More is not better in this process when it comes to recommendations. Also, it's important that you follow directions. Don't make the mistake of saying, "Well, I know you're asking for 1. I'm going to throw in 2 or 3. You don't have to read them, though." Notre Dame, several years ago, got very frustrated with people not following directions. They wrote in their application, "We want 1 academic letter of recommendation. If you send us more than 1, we're noting in your file that you do not follow directions." So here you are thinking, just throw them in. They use them, they don't use them, no big deal. The committee opens up your file, the admissions committee opens up your file, and the very first line says, "Applicant doesn't follow directions." So what you thought was a good intention now turns out to be a negative. So please be very careful with that and just follow directions. Always make a phone call to admissions office if you have any doubt. Some schools you will see in Naviance will say minimum 1, maximum 5. Don't send 5 recommendations. Don't do it. I would send more than 2 at the most. And like I said, in most cases, 1 is sufficient. There are, schools like Northeastern, I believe, had about, I think it was 40,000 applicants last year. If every single applicant put one additional piece of paper in that file, do you see where the problem comes in on their end of the frustration? So just be very cautious about it. I know that you're thinking, oh, just throw it in there and let them make a decision on it. Call and ask if it's okay, and they will tell you yes or no, and then you just need to respect their decision on that. So that goes, that blue teacher form goes to your teacher, okay? Now, if you do ask more than one teacher, you need to fill out a second blue form because you're writing about your experience with that specific teacher. So you don't want to fill one out for your English teacher and give it to your English teacher and your math teacher, because the math teacher is going to be like, I didn't talk about that in my class. It had nothing to do with what I teach. The school counselor recommendation form, the green one, is a little bit more in detail. And that's because the school counselor writes the all-round recommendation. We talk about your academics, and we talk about your extracurriculars. And some of you we know very well. Some of you have not had a need to come see us over the last 3 years. You've been very self-sufficient. And the bottom line is, you guys are involved in things outside of school that we just may never know about. And it's important that we include that information in your letter of recommendation to show you as a whole person. So that goes to the guidance counselor. And the last one, the activity sheet, the orange one, that also goes to the guidance counselor. And when you apply for scholarships in February, that's part of the scholarship application. So if you fill that out now, you got half of your scholarship application complete already. Do not give your teacher the activity sheet. Even if they ask you for it, do not give your teacher the activity sheet. Your teachers are writing an academic letter of recommendation for you. They should not be writing about you playing softball or having a part-time job or anything like that. They should be talking about the experience they had with you in the classroom. Now, if your teacher was also your field hockey coach, that's fine. Because they've seen you in a different way, and they can certainly share that type of information. But the activity sheet only goes to the school counselor, and those should be emailed. The school counselor form and the activity should be emailed to your counselor. And very, very important, whatever you do not put these documents into Google. Do not save them as Google Docs, because it's going to completely mess up the formatting and make it very difficult to read. So please just save them as Word documents and just send them along to us, okay? So what do I put on the activities worksheet? Every year, students really shortchange themselves, not thinking that some of their activities are important. Well, what we've done is we've gathered a list of in-school and some suggested out-of-school activities that you may want to include on your activity sheet. Now, you don't want to go back to middle school and talk about when you did the Walk for Hunger once in 7th grade. No one really cares about that. But if you've done the Walk for Hunger since 6th grade all the way through high school, that shows a long-term commitment to something. So certainly you would want to include that. So primarily we are looking at grades 9 through 12. Excuse me. And you're gonna we have our listed on the left-hand side are our school-related clubs and athletic programs and things of that sort. On the right-hand side, some suggested out-of-school activities. Babysitting is a job for those of you that are babysitters. I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting with a student and I say, "Do you have a part-time job?" "No." I said, "Do you babysit?" "Well, yeah, I babysit." It's a job with a lot of responsibility. So it's important that you include things like that. If you've done dance or horseback riding, piano lessons, boys or girls, Girl Scouts, those types of things. Certainly, if you play an outside soccer league and you also play soccer for the school, you want to list both of those in there. So make sure you're not shortchange yourself, because the colleges are really looking at your involvement in and out of the classroom. They're not just looking at your grades. They're looking at what you've done in school for extracurricular activities and outside of school. Okay, the application. So in a lot of cases, the application is the only impression the college is going to get of you. A lot of schools do not do interviews anymore. If you do come across a school that does an interview, take advantage of it. I know that can be really scary, but just talk to your school counselor. We will be more than happy to talk to you about what to expect, how to dress, and how to present yourself. The thing you have to remember when you go on an interview is you are interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Okay? Yeah, they want to know what kind of person you are, but you're the one that's buying the product, and it's a very expensive product at that. You want to make sure before you put that money down that that's going to be the right place for you. That's going to be the right fit for you. I worked at a college campus for 7 years, 2 different colleges, and I can tell you the admissions counselors have no idea what life is like after 5 o'clock on a college campus. They think they do, but they really don't. Okay? You want to talk to the students. If you're going on tours, whether they're virtual or in person, you want to also talk to the students, not just the admissions people, because they are going to tell you what they love about their school. They're going to tell you what they don't like about their school, and you'll be able to make a much better informed decision on whether or not that would be the right place for you to be. The older the adults get, the further removed they are from that experience. So talk to the students. So we talked earlier about how many schools to apply to. Actually, before we even go there, let's go back to the application real quick. If you are still using a paper application and not applying online, and there are schools that still use paper applications, it's very important that you take that application and put it in a safe place. Do not throw it in your book bag. Do not spill your coffee on it. Do not have curled up edges and little tears on it and things like that. Sometimes that is the only impression the college has of you. And if you hand in an application that looks like it's gone through the wash, and there's only a couple of seats left, and there's a whole bunch of people that have applied, your application is going to be put to the side because it's going to look like you didn't put the time and the care into it. So it's important that you present yourself with the best possible application. If you do not have good, you do not print real neat, you may want to have somebody who prints very well fill out the application for you. So it's legible and nice and neat. But you're lucky because most of them are electronic now. Okay. The other piece with the applications, please remember they are not text messages. You must capitalize proper nouns. You must punctuate. It's very important that you use proper spelling and grammar on the applications. Please don't skip questions. Every year when I'm going over an application with a student, why did you skip this one? Well, I didn't think it was important. If they put it on the application, it's important. Please don't skip the question unless they tell you it's okay to skip this one. If you're applying for financial aid, you do have to give them your social security number because it's the only way they will identify you. I know a lot of people are hesitant to do that. You are safe with it. The colleges will keep that secure, but they will not recognize you as John Smith. They're going to recognize you as 029466872. So you need to have, and that's not my social security number. I just made that up. It's important that you get that information in so there's no delay in the financial aid process. You don't lose out. So now let's talk a little bit about how many schools to apply to. A lot of people don't believe this, but if you do your research, 4 to 6 schools is an appropriate number of colleges to apply to. And like I said, there's an application fee that goes along with each one of them. Most of your schools should fall in that. There's 3 categories: realistic, stretch, and safety or backup. Most of your schools should fall in the realistic category. And then you may want to have one in the stretch and one in the backup range also. You don't have to have a stretch school if you don't want to. But the numbers do speak for themselves. If you look at the graphs in Naviance, which is a history of our students over the last 6 years of acceptance, rejections, and wait list, those numbers are very realistic. And it'll plot you on that graph with your GPA and with your either your PSAT or SAT scores, whatever we have in Naviance. So those are pretty spot on. Strange things don't usually happen in the process, but if you're not sure, talk to your counselor about it, and we can help you categorize those schools. But you should all have realistic, and you should all have a backup plan, no questions asked. And the backup plan isn't necessarily because you don't get into the school. I had a student many years ago who wanted to go to school out west, and she applied to a whole bunch of schools out west and got in. And her senior year, her father passed away unexpectedly, and she was an only child. And it was difficult, obviously, on her and her mom too. And she decided, gee, you know, maybe going out west isn't the best thing to do. So her backup school was UConn, which is a pretty good backup school. But, you know, from where she lived, it was only about an hour and a half away. So she decided, you know what, I'm going to my backup school because I just want to be close enough to mom just in case she needs me, and or if she needed her. And another reason to have a backup school too is, let's say you get into a school like Boston University, $72,000 a year, and then the financial aid package comes in and there's not much in it. But you want to go to college, what are you going to do? So maybe you need a backup school that's more affordable. So just keep those things in the back of your mind when you're going through the process. And we'll move along now. So what the next page is just the criteria that the colleges are looking at when you're when they're reading your application, your course selection. And course selection also includes your senior year. They want to see that you are maintaining at least the same level of challenge in your schedule that you did the previous 3 years. They do not want to see you working hard for 3 years and cruising to the finish line your senior year. They want to see you gearing up for college. The recommendations will carry some weight, what your interests are, test scores, not as much this year. A well-written essay can certainly help you. Your rank and your GPA. An interview sometimes will help too if they really get to know you and see your personality. And then what, you know, if you've won any awards or got any recognitions, or just what have you been involved with outside of the classroom. So there's 5 different types of application deadlines. There's early action. Early action is a non-binding process. The deadlines usually fall on the 1st and the 15th of November and December. And then there's early decision, which also, early action is a non-binding process. You can apply to as many schools early action as you would like, and you do not need to make a decision until the universal signing date of May 1st. Early decision is a legally binding contract. You can only apply to one college early decision. If you get in, you have to go there. And they check. I had a student that applied early decision to Babson and Bentley. It was being recruited for tennis for both, and I happened to know the tennis coach at Babson at the time. And she didn't even tell me that she applied to both those schools. And both schools found out, and they both rescinded their decisions. So it's not anything to be messing with. Early decision, you can, if you apply early decision to school, you can still apply regular decision. However, if you get in early decision, you have to withdraw from the regular decision schools that you applied to. You're not going to find many school counselors, if any, that are big fans of early decision, because you're going to find out about early decision probably before the first of the year, and you are going to have no idea about financial aid for quite some time after that. So again, you don't want to get into a school, it's going to be a big ticket school, find out you have not much financial aid, and then what are you going to do because you applied early decision? So we're not big fans. of that. Now, not every school has early action, not every school has early decision. And their deadlines, when I say they're the 1st and the 15th of the month, it's not every 1st and 15th. They will pick one. So it would be November 1st or November 15th or December 1st or December 15th. They will pick one of those as their deadline. Priority. Priority is a non-binding application. It's similar to early action, but usually there's some specific, it's usually specific to the individual college. Then there's the regular decision deadlines. Regular decisions are non-binding. Those deadlines begin the 1st of January and run the 1st and the 15th all the way up to April 1st. And then there's rolling admissions. Rolling is a non-binding process. There's no deadline, but you got to be so you can always apply if things don't work out someplace, but you're all going to have safety schools, so we're not going to worry about that. But there's always a place to apply to. The problem with rolling admissions, though, is if you wait too long, they may fill up and they run out of space. Several years ago, Northeastern used to be a rolling admissions school. And if you applied by January 15th, you'd be fine, no problems. All of a sudden, I had a whole bunch of students that applied. As soon as they got back from vacation, they applied in early January, sent their stuff in, and they're getting rejected left and right. I called the admissions office. I go, what's going on? These students ordinarily would have always have gotten in with, this type of student. They said, we filled up in December. Because what happens with rolling admissions is they get the application, and since there's no deadline, they don't wait for all the applications to come in. They get the app, they read it, they make a decision, then they get the next app, they read it, and they make a decision. And once they fill up, they fill up. So just be careful. There's good and bad to rolling. Just a reminder about the 15 school days. It's very, very important to do that. Please do not spring things on your school counselor at the very last minute. When you look at in that grid below where it says college application deadline on the left-hand side, look at the January 1st college application deadline. You have to have everything requested into your guidance counselor and your teacher by December 1st. That's not 3 weeks, that's a month. So just be very careful with those. Colleges are very unforgiving when it comes to deadlines. You miss it, good luck. You apply to us next year and we'll certainly consider you. There's nothing you can do about it. They have thousands and thousands of applicants. A phone call from mom and dad won't work at this point for you. They don't want to deal with mom and dad. They want to deal with you. Most of you will probably be close to 18, if not 18 at that point. So they're going to treat you as an adult, and they're not going to care about a phone call. So please be very careful when it comes to those deadlines, especially if you're applying early. If you think you just are not going to have enough time to do a proper, thorough job, don't apply early. Just apply regular, okay? If you need the extra time to make sure you're writing a well-thought-out essay and having things proofread and all that, don't stress yourself over an early deadline. As far as the guidance, the school counselor deadlines, if you think you may miss a deadline with us, please communicate with us before the deadline comes and goes. We can always try to make some sort of an arrangement. It's the people that wait until the deadline is passed or show up the day that it's due that we end up having issues and problems. Okay. Now, an important note about applications. All of you will get emails and letters from colleges saying, thank you for applying to our school. We received your application and your application fee, but we're missing something. It could be your SAT scores. It could be a teacher recommendation. It could be a counselor recommendation. It could be a transcript or a report card or something. There's a million different forms that get sent. Do not panic. You are going to get them. You will probably get them during a vacation period when there's no one to call at the school and talk to about it. Do not worry about it. As long as you know that you have gotten your application and your application fee into the college by the deadline, you have made your deadline. You are safe. The colleges are not going to hold you responsible for College Board, a teacher, a counselor, or anybody else that might be submitting information on your behalf. Okay, as long as you get your stuff in on time, which is your application, your fee, you are safe. So when you get those emails, if you're concerned, just check in with your school counselor, and we will let you know if we sent it, when we're sending it, or sometimes we need to call the college and give them a little bit of a kick saying, hey, you know what? Naviance is telling us that you have it. You just haven't opened it yet. Take it out of the computer and put it in the file. Okay, so don't panic. You're going to get those. It's a terrible feeling, but it's beyond all of our control. Students on IEPs and 504s, if you have any, if you want some information about specialized programs, you can come down to the school counseling office, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that. Two schools in particular in our area that are very, very good for students that have been on IEPs and 504s are Curry College and Westfield State College. They have two extremely good programs for students there to support them in, excuse me, that you are a mainstream student. You are not in a different track. It's just you get a little bit of extra attention along the way until you don't need it anymore, and they work you off of it. So it's a fantastic program. I would highly recommend it. So when you get onto your application, you are going to have to plug in a whole bunch of information about Middleborough High School. And it is all here on this page. And some of you are still going to email and call us and say, what's the address of the school? What's your email address? It's right here on page 14. Our school code number, our address, our phone and fax numbers, the correct spelling of Mr. Paul F. Brannigan, Jr., our principal, the correct spelling of our guidance counselor names. Now, my name, Stephen, is spelled with a PH, not a V. Personally, I don't care how you spell it. It doesn't offend me or at all. But that's the way I sign my name. That's the way it's typed on my letters. And again, it's one of those little details that colleges look at and say, were you being thorough? So just take your time when you're going through this and make sure you're getting all this information correct. Our class rank is exact and it's weighted. Your class size, take out a pen, is 190. That is your official class size as of this moment. 190. Our GPA scale is 4.0, and that's unweighted. And if you have been at Middleborough High School since your freshman year, you started in September of 2017, and will be graduating in June of 2021. June 5th, to be exact. Okay. So steps for matching your Common App to Naviance. So after you fill out the Common App, you need to link it to Naviance so the two speak to each other and we can send things out for you. So when you get onto Naviance, it's going to tell you step by step in the next couple of pages here how to link Common App to Naviance. So I had a student earlier today that emailed me saying that they used their personal email on an application, and their school email is how they sign into Naviance, and that is okay. That's not a problem. What you need to do, though, when you're matching up Common App to Naviance, when you go through the steps on this page at the bottom, it's going to tell you to type in your email, the email address you used on the Common App. So that's your way around it. It doesn't have to be the email address you used to get onto Naviance. It's just the email address and the Common App to match things up. Okay, and then you submit it, and that pinkish reddish bar will turn green if you did it right, and that means everything is talking to each other, and that gives us the ability to start loading things in and taking care of business. Teacher recommendations. When you log on to your Naviance account, here are step-by-step instructions of how to officially request a teacher recommendation. You click on the College tab at the top of Naviance, go to the drop box, and click on Apply to College. Then you click on Letters of Recommendation, click on Add Request, and there'll be a drop box, and you need to select the teacher, write a nice little note to the teacher thanking them for agreeing to write your letter of recommendation, and then click submit, and you have officially requested your teacher recommendation. And then, of course, you have to email them the form that we showed you earlier. Transcript requests. If you do not put in a transcript request into Naviance, we will have no idea you applied to schools. So it's very important that you do that, and here are the step-by-step instructions for that. You click on colleges I'm applying to, and then you click on request transcripts, and it's going to be the initial transcript. You're going to select the colleges that are in your list, and you have to have already added the colleges in from Common App. And then this is very important. You need to click the appropriate deadline that you are applying for. And it's going to give you the option of all of those, whether they offer that or not. So it's important that you know, if you're applying early action, that they really have early action. Otherwise, it's going to mess up the dates in Naviance. And when your school counselor goes in there and says, oh, gee, this must be a rolling admissions school because there's no date in there, but it's really November 15th, they might miss it. Okay, so it's very important that you indicate the correct type of application you're applying for. Okay, financial aid. There are generally 3 types of financial aid. The Fafsa, the free application for federal student aid, the CSS Profile, and the college's own form. So the FAFSA, which is the second most used government form in the United States behind the tax forms, is now available as of October 1st. You go to www.fafsa.ed.gov, and you can start filling that out. You need to create a PIN number for yourself as a student, and your parent or guardian needs to do the same also. And you want the 2021-2022 FAFSA form, because that's when you'd be starting college. If at any point you are asked in that application to pay a fee, you are on the wrong website. Okay? Remember, the first F in FAFSA is for free application for federal student aid. There's websites out there, FAFSA.com, and other ones out there that will charge you for a service that you don't need. So make sure that you should never be paying for the FAFSA form. The CSS Profile is another financial aid form that some private schools use. If you have private schools that you're applying to that subscribe to the CSS Profile, then you need to go to the College Board website, and you can see the link right there. It's a College Board form. So, of course, it's a College Board form. You're going to pay a fee for this one. And they charge you per application, I believe, per school that you're applying for. So, but, you know, if you get aid, it's worth doing it. So that's how you would access the CSS Profile. And then the third is the college's own. And that's something that they will either send you saying, in your acceptance letter saying you're getting merit scholarship, or they may send you a form saying if you're interested in applying for additional aid, complete these forms. Okay, so every year we usually have an expert come in and talk about financial aid. It's a ever-evolving, complex process that's changing, always changing. And we are far from experts on it, so we always have an expert come in from MIFA to talk about it and walk you through the process. Obviously, this year we can't do that, but MIFA is offering online seminars, and if you refer to the school counseling newsletter that went out last week, guidelines, the dates of the workshops are available in there, and there's not many workshops left, so I would if you haven't signed up for one yet, I would do that right away. We wouldn't be a great help to you with that. Tammy Miller, our School to Career counselor, is our resident expert, if you want to call her that. She does dabble in that a little bit, and she also has a son that's in college right now, so she's been filling it out for the last few years herself. Athletics. If any of you are interested in playing Division I or Division II athletics in college, you need to declare yourself at the NCAA Eligibility Center. Only for Division I or Division II. You do not need to do it for Division III. That should be done right away. That should have already been done, actually, but it's okay. You still can do it now. What will happen is you will fill out the form, and it will come back as a rejection initially because you have not satisfied all the requirements because you haven't completed your senior classes yet. So don't go, oh my God, it's been rejected. It's always rejected until you graduate and submit the final form. But you should go in and you should fill that out if you have any desire to do D1 or D2. Okay. The NCAA, there's a website there, and for SAT or ACT code, use 9999. And then marking your calendars, financial aid workshop, scholarship information night. You do not need to worry about the scholarship information until February. We usually launch the book the week before February vacation. In the meantime, any scholarships that come into us that don't go into our book, I've been sending out through Naviance as those come in. So you can feel free to apply to those if you would like. Those don't go through us. And then National College Signing Day is May 1st. That's the day you have, unless you've applied early decision, that's the day that you need to formally notify one of the colleges that you're accepting their offer for admissions and seal the deal with a deposit. And one more that's not on there, we just added last week, Bridgewater State University on the spot instant decision admissions. What will happen, they usually come into our building, but this year what will happen is we're going to set up the students that want to go through this process. It's a 10-minute interview, and they will virtually meet with the reps. We'll put them in a room by themselves with a laptop, and they'll virtually meet with the rep, and they'll talk for 10 minutes, and they will get their decision right there, right then and there. In the past, they've actually handed them the letter, but I'm not sure if I'm not sure how that would work virtually right now. But anybody's interested in Bridgewater, and you have the GPA, you know you can get in. You potentially get in. If you have a GPA below a 2.3, I wouldn't apply right now. I would wait. But contact your guidance counselor, and we will set you up with an interview if you're interested in doing that. And Ms. Byrne, if you can maybe put the date out there. I can't recall the date off the top of my head that this is all happening, but the information is in the newsletter if you refer back to that. Okay, the back of the book is just a glossary of terms. I'm sure you're hearing a lot of words and acronyms. We try to get all that information in here so you get an idea of what these things all mean, and a notes page also. So that is part 3. So
Hi, Steve. So
Hi.
we're coming back in. I'm going to put in the chat that BSU Instant Decision Day. And just for our families to know that in the bulletin that goes out every week, that there's information in there, more detailed information about that date and how to sign up and all of that. So, so Amy and Steve, just as we are looking at the clock and making sure that we're being mindful of time, is there any words of wisdom that you would kind of recommend? And maybe we'll start with you, Amy, of just things that you've seen that maybe words of wisdom, as we know we have our first big deadline coming of November 1st, and then of course many deadlines after that. So just any kind of words of wisdom that may be helpful for those that are watching tonight.
Yeah, I would encourage students to be very organized with the whole process. I think that they get really overwhelmed because there's so many steps to it, and there are big steps that the students have to take, and then there are steps that they need to connect with their counselors and teachers for, And then there are steps that parents and guardians have to take, such as, with the Fafsa and any financial aid part of the process. I have students, they'll write out, they'll have a folder dedicated to it, and they'll write out, the different things, like a checklist that they need to work their way through to get through the process. Also, don't leave things until the last minute, because then you're going to create more stress unneeded for yourself. So, break it down into smaller chunks, and do things on the early side. That way you can avoid that stress, and everybody gets through it. It's I've been doing this for a very long time. So has Mr. Goldman, and they all get through it. And the guidance counselors, that's what we're here for, is to help you through this whole process. So I have students meeting with me, this week. I've met with some over the last couple of weeks, and next week. So just have your student set up an appointment to meet with us. They can email us, because I know that some of them are on their remote days and whatnot, and we can set up those appointments. So I think that's pretty much what I need to say for my words of encouragement. I'm seeing there's a question in the chat. My child still doesn't know what he wants to major in. Is there a good online aptitude test? So yes, there are some tests or questionnaire type things that you can do on Naviance that are great. And so some of them look like, it'll say like, I like this or I dislike this activity. And so it might say, I like to go to the zoo and find out all I can about the animals. And you have to make a gut decision. I like it or I don't like it. And at the end of that, it will tell you, sort of areas of study that you might be interested in, but they're pretty broad. And then it will, you can easily look into the careers and that go along with that, as well as, and look at specific information, such as, what type of education or training you need to get into that line of work, and also what the pay is for, starting out in that line of work, and the median pay for it. So there are also tests that you can take on Mass CIS into careers. I can put that in the chat room when I stop talking. But that's another great website that they have all kinds of different tests, aptitude type tests and interest inventories and whatnot, personality type things that you can take. So I'll add that to the chat, and there are others too, but we can post those for you. Not Naviance. Oh yeah, Paul just okay. Yeah. Naviance is the program. Yeah, that I just mentioned.
And maybe if I may, because I know, just to build from that, and I want to make sure, because I think there may be many families or many of our seniors that may have their entire plan ready to go. They know what they want to do until the day they retire, right? And when you're meeting with those students, that they have their plan. But then we also know that there are many of our seniors that come into this experience and they really don't have any idea what they want to do. They don't know what they want to major in. And my wonder to you is what advice can you give, whether Mr. Goldsman or Mrs. Byrne, to those seniors that are really exploring their options? And I know I've always said to them, sometimes going into declared can be really quite an adventure and not a bad thing, because college is this place where you are experiencing and maybe things you thought you wanted to do, you realize you don't, and vice versa. But I'm wondering from a school counselor's perspective, if there's that kind of word of wisdom potentially as those seniors are contemplating what is next for them in this college process.
Well, first of all, the most common major is undecided. So you don't have to go into college knowing what it is that you want to do, but you do need to go into it saying, I want a college degree, a college education. There's a lot of different options out there today that don't necessarily mean college. The trades are going to be exploding over the next several years. The average age of a tradesman right now is 57 years old. So they are going to be retiring. That's what the money's going to be, if you don't mind physical labor and working in the elements. But so, for years and years, it's always been college, 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 college. There's different routes with college. There's 2-year, there's 4-year, there's trade school. There's, there's also learning a skill in the military. There's gap year programs where you can kind of, start teasing out some ideas. City Year is an incredible program where people are working with inner city youth, and now they want to be teachers. They never thought of doing that before. So if you know you want to continue with an education, that's the starting point. Okay, and don't just schedule some time with us. Let us sit down. Let's see where you're coming from and what your thoughts are. Sometimes you might want to maybe just start and take one class at a college, whether it's a Massasoit or even a Bridgewater or a UMass, Dartmouth, and take 1 or 2 classes to see if you like it. I know I went to school as an undecided major. And after taking several classes, I decided, as electives, I took one that I liked, and I went to another one in that department that I liked. Next thing you know, I was majoring in it. So and it wasn't anything I had ever thought of when I was in high school. In fact, if you told me I was going to be a school counselor, that was as far from my radar as could possibly be. I thought I was going to be a police officer. I was actually, but I ended up, getting twisted and turned in a million different directions, and things happened and brought me to where I am now, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. It's if you have the motivation and the desire, it will come to you. You just need to keep I always used to say, maybe I don't know what I want to do, but through all these experiences, I certainly know what I don't want to do. And you just kind of keep working your way until you find that thing that is you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Goldman. So as we begin to close tonight, first and foremost, to Mr. Goldman and Mrs. Byrne, thank you for your sharing your expertise and your knowledge base of this. And it is such a complex process and really an exciting process. But we know that this year, more than ever, there is just so many nuances that have changed because of the pandemic and in many ways. So I think that for our seniors that are watching and families that are watching, it's so important that you're reaching out to your school counselor and that you're asking those questions. And the school counseling page on the school website, if you were to go in, all of the workbooks that have been put together for all 3 of these workshop series that started back in the junior year are there for you to download and to print out so you can have them and go back and reflect upon. So to Steve and Amy, thank you so very much for being here tonight. For our families that are joining us this evening, that please know that you can reach out to the school counseling office here at the high school at any time. And I know that they'll be happy to, navigate any of the questions that you have. And one thing, just for the families that are here, you notice that we're not really using the word guidance anymore. Because as we know, the fact that the more modern term and trend that in across the country is no longer a guidance department, it's now school counseling department. And as we're very close to moving into our new building, it also comes with new opportunity. And so as our students move into the new high school, that our entire school counseling department will be named the school counseling office. So we are trying to change that vocabulary and the use of that. So you may see us interchanging the word guidance and school counselor all at the same time as we're kind of navigating that as well. But it's an exciting journey for our department and for our counselors. And but to all of our families here tonight, thank you for joining us. And again, we look forward to celebrating in the spring all of the wonderful successes of the acceptance letters and all of that. And I will leave you with this one thing. As your acceptance letters begin to come in, it is so important that you reach out to your guidance counselor. Oops, excuse me, I just did it. To our school counselors to make sure they know where you're going and you're updating your acceptances in Naviance, because that's such important information for us, whether you are you're going to attend that institution or just the fact you were accepted. So please, 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 as those letters start to come in, which we know they will, that you want to make sure the fact that you're doing that updating, because it's so important for us as a school, and also to be able to make sure we can celebrate you as well. So we got to update that big map in the front lobby, and that's all of our acceptances, not where people are going, it's where they get accepted. So to everyone tonight, thank you so very much for joining us, and to Mr. Goldman, Mrs. Byrne, thanks for giving your time tonight to do this. So to everyone, have a wonderful night.
Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you soon.